Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new Ninjago video here on the channel. My name is TannerFishies. In today's video, we are going to be discussing some Ninjago Dragons Rising Season 3 news brought to us by Cities on Creation. On Instagram, of course. They are a Lego designer at Ninjago, so they do some Ninjago designs here, and they have been posting over the past few days some information regarding this set right here, the Zayn's combo mech set for 2025. I would like to go through these 5 posts specifically, read through them, just kind of talk about them a little bit more because they do talk about some Season 3 stuff in these posts, and also I would like to give my thoughts on more information that we found out regarding the actual set itself. So without further ado, feel free to follow Cities on Creation over on Instagram. Again, very informative account, very informative designer at Ninjago. I will link this account down below in the description. Without further ado, let's take a look at the first post and go throughout the rest of them. Alright, so like I said, this is kind of like a multi-day thing. We will start with part 1, the combiner here. Not going to read through all of this, but if you would like to pause and read it more extensively, by all means feel free. But essentially, they say this is by far the most complex and challenging model, especially from a conceptual level. Yeah, very long write-up, but I'm very excited to get into it. We started with nothing but a new combiner mech that includes a dragon and Big Zayn, which it definitely does. More on those two specifically later. This can literally look like anything. In fact, for a while, we have explored so many other directions, probably can't share details. Eventually, we narrowed it down a little and set for the dragon being Rayu. Interesting. So I guess originally, Rayu was not the first choice to be featured here. It does make sense for Rayu to be featured here for a couple of reasons. One of which being, again, being Rayu, as we needed him to be somewhere in the 2025 assortment, and he has yet to grow drastically bigger in the show to warrant a new solo set. Yeah, it was, especially with some of the information that we talked about earlier today in a few other videos, it doesn't really seem like Rayu will be growing up that much at all in Season 3. I would not be surprised if Rayu is the exact same from what we saw him in Season 2 of Dragons Rising. Then again, here he does have noticeably bigger wings, but again, the growth, even if he does grow, it wasn't enough to warrant an entirely new set. Let's see. If I'm honest, wasn't very convinced with the concept at first. I think it worked out pretty well, all things considered. Simply couldn't make sense of Rayu sitting on the back of a mech given his size. I don't think he can carry the mech and give it the flight ability. Why would a high-tech mech with all the thrusters in the world need a small dragon to fly anyway? This is interesting. Until one day I cracked the puzzle. What if he isn't sitting on the mech, but it is Rayu's mech? Yeah, so even though the set is called Zayn's combo mech, all things considered here, Rayu is the pilot. Zayn just kind of attaches to it, obviously. I don't know if Zayn is piloting this thing. It sounds like, just from what we have here, it's kind of like a Rayu mech more so. Let's see, just to be clear, all of the above is purely my own headcanon. The set name ended up being Zayn's Ultra Combiner mech. In the show, it's not even a mech, but Giant Zayn as a whole. Yeah, so I guess in terms of the sets, you could see this as just a Rayu mech. But again, in terms of the show, as we've discussed in previous videos as well, this is the entire, this whole thing is Zayn. It's just one big body for Zayn. Rayu just kind of tags along here. But from a set perspective, it does make sense for the mech to be kind of just a Rayu mech. I think that's a very, very cool idea. Moving on to part 2 here, we have the aesthetics. Took us a while to figure out who else should be a part of the combiner. Eventually I pitched the idea of Sora and Pixel. They pair well with Zayn narratively as the tech trio. Yeah, I mean, all things considered, they totally do. I mean, obviously Sora is the master of tech. Zayn is all tech, so is Pixel. Let's see, what else do we got here? Think it would also work color-wise as well. They all share white and earth blue. Also true. Which, of course, unfortunately also falls in line with what the previous combiner mech looks like. Yeah, I mean, they do look similar. They do have a lot of similar colors going on. In fact, pretty much the same colors, just beat for beat there. But I think they are distinctively different from each other. They talk about how the proportions are a little bit different here, exaggerate the bulk and chunky look of the new one, resulted in a shorter but beefier mech. Yeah, this one is definitely a lot more tall and lanky. This guy's a little bit smaller, as you can see just from the comparison here. If you really wanted to say, technically this one's a little bit taller because Ryu's wing tip just barely towers over this guy. I guess you could, but the main meat is like right here, which is a lot shorter compared to this. But again, this one is more bulky. Let's see. Another area I wanted to differentiate it with is the coloring logic. The previous combiner mech feels like the classic Super Sentai combiner, where you clearly see the color splits of each vehicle. That is true. This one is more combined. Yeah, so the color scheme is more consistent. It's not like a Power Rangers type of let's combine all the different vehicles. It's not like a Voltron thing. So I think that also distinguishes it and also makes it like, you know, its own thing entirely. It's not just a straight up copy of this previous combo mech, which I think is good. They also talk a little bit more about the framing and the armor, all that good stuff. Again, pause if you would like to read anything here. Moving on to part 3, and the most interesting part to me, the lack of knees. Yeah, so if you guys know me, you would know that I love Lego mechs, but I'm not a huge fan of when Lego mechs don't have knees. I believe in posability all the way, not just partially, and it seems like this mech is another Ninjago mech that unfortunately does not have knees. However, we have a defense for the kneeless mech, so let's see what is said in the defense. I will go further into why knees aren't really viable on this model beyond weight in a later post about the car, but in this part of the write-up, I simply want to show how posable this mech is despite not having knees. And it is true, again, just looking through the pictures here, you can get this thing into a variety of different poses. I think that is very cool and very awesome, given the lack of full articulation. And I do understand with a lot of Lego sets as well, not every mech-like thing has the ability to have knees because it damages the structure of the entire thing. I love the Lego Optimus Prime set, for example. That thing doesn't have knees because if it did have knees, it would kind of collapse. And I'm pretty sure the weight is a problem on this guy too. Pretty early on, I set myself the goal that this mech needs to be able to at least hold a decent walking pose despite not having knees. I feel like it does that extremely well there. Eventually settled for this design that basically separated the heels from the front part of the feet. Okay, as you can see there, very cool. Which allows both a more natural stance and the walking pose I wanted to achieve. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it gets the job done. I really like this one right here where Rayu and Zayn are just kind of looking down at Pixel. That's pretty funny. You can bend the mech almost 90 degrees forward, more dramatic poses, superhero landing, running poses, etc. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like it still is able to hit some poses despite not having knees. Also wanted to make sure there are elbow joints. Glad for that. Glad we actually do have elbow joints. That's nice. I feel like if you can't have knees, you should probably just do everything in your power to give it everything else, if that makes sense. Let's see, head articulation, okay. Not only does Ryu's head have quite a range of motion, but more importantly, Big Zayn's head, which is in the place where our minifigure's pilot head would be, can also be rotated. That is pretty cool. I mean, you can get them looking the same way, which I think is nice. Those two heads can line up, and you can pose those any which way you want. I think that is very, very awesome. Like I said, if you can't have, if you can't have knees, at least give us posability everywhere else, right? I do feel like the lack of knees will bother me, ultimately, if I'm being completely honest. I understand why there can't be knees, but still I would like knees. Just because we've seen a million other Lego mechs, like most recently with Cole's Titan mech, that one had knees too, despite being massive. So, but if you can't have knees, I'm at least glad that they pretty much enhanced the articulation everywhere else. Now getting into the Big Zayn, part 4, Big Zayn. I love this pose. That is so cute. Big Zayn in Pixel. We love to see it. Oh, look at that one. Look at him. He's so cool. I do love Big Zayn. I think that design is really awesome. But let's read about Big Zayn. Big Zayn was the one consistent thing among all the concepts we have explored because it was decided very early on that he would become a big boy in this season. Certified big boy indeed. However, how big and how does he look was still up for discussion. I think the design turned out real nice, and I think it is a good size too. It's big enough to be different, obviously, still warranting the upgrade status, but it's also not like insanely huge. I think this scale is awesome, personally. I think it looks really good. The poses you can get out of this guy are just amazing. I love Big Zayn here. In some iterations, he was a lot bigger than this because, as mentioned, the early sketch has a combining mechanism, which was much more similar to the first combiner mech. However, I actually wanted to make him smaller, almost the same size as a Big Fig. Yeah, it looks like it is around the same size. I'm glad they did not go for a Big Fig Zayn. I think brick-built Zayn is the best way to go for this here. Like how he can still reasonably interact with other minifigures. Absolutely. I already talked about how much I love that. That's amazing. Even after the size was set, went on exploring many different ways of doing the head. Actually took me some work to convince my manager this was the way to go. I like how the head turned out. Again, that's just a printed piece, I believe, there. And it still is recognizable as Zayn. I mean, you can still tell that that is Zayn, which I think is important, because if he doesn't look anything like Zayn, you've kind of missed the point, but that is very clearly Zayn right there. Let's see, even had some Titan mech style brick-built heads explored. See, I'm glad they did this to make it actually look more like Zayn. Again, you can read more if you would like. Also really happy with how the transformation turned out. Wanted to make sure that all of his limbs are hidden in plain sight on the big mech. Yep, we've looked at that previously. He just kind of folds up and attaches to the chest. I think that works out extremely well. So Big Zayn, I think, is a huge plus. I love this design. Very curious to see how it works in the context of the show. I'm very curious to see that still. But I love this design. Can't wait to get my hands on the Big Zayn brick-built design right here. It's going to look great in the collection. And finally, as of the time of recording, this is the last part. I'm not sure if they will have any more parts, but if they do, we could always do an update video or something like that later on down the line. This is part 5, all about the new Rayu, which I think is extremely interesting and definitely worth talking about. So going into this model, Rayu was my second biggest concern after Big Zayn. Naturally, it was also the second thing that I tackled. It's a big challenge because Rayu is an established character and there's no room for too much creativity with how he looks here. He has to have 4 legs, body has to be shaped a certain way. Hyperlogical brain was also set on making sense of how he connects to the mech. So I think I did read a little bit of this. I did read some of this, and I feel like the concept is genius. Also tried to make sure that it does do something different from the Young Dragon Rayu set, so fans would not feel like we just got the same model twice. Yeah, this does feel similar to the Rayu set, but it's also noticeably different, again, primarily with the wings. All that came together and formed the idea that this is an armored up version of Rayu. The whole white and dark blue part on the torso is meant to be armor created by Sora. Again, my headcanon, not saying this happens in the show. So as far as the sets are concerned, this is an armored Rayu. This is armor, that's armor. I think that is genius. I feel like having Rayu, again, wear a suit of armor, it basically goes back to the idea that this is Rayu's mech, and that's how he connects to the mech. Again, I just think that's amazing. Super smart idea there. Also introduced a bit more neck to this version of Rayu to look more show accurate, especially in the tail. Appreciate that. Let's see, what else? These studs are now exposed on the back for Cole to sit on. There you go. So every ninja member in this set has a spot on the mech. That's also fantastic. Love that attention to detail. Bit of a pity that the feet got smaller than the last one. Ultimately, let's see, where was I? Ultimately, it was a sacrifice for the transformation as they needed to fit the tiny space behind Zayn's feet. I see. So yeah, this Rayu does have like a little bit of a tinier foot design compared to the other Rayu. However, that might be something that I fix when I get this set, just because I don't really plan to have this Rayu displayed with the mech, if that makes sense, but I will probably talk more about that in a future video. Another thing I want to point out is that there's a mistake in the instructions regarding the sticker numbers. Double check with the box image when applying stickers to Rayu's legs. Yeah, so I guess if you are planning on getting this set, might want to keep that in mind. Like I said, this is the final post as of right now, but there is always the chance that more will be added later. I will be doing an update if there is any more information regarding this set, and even other sets from other designers for this wave. If they do something similar, you bet I'm going to be talking about that. But overall, that'll pretty much wrap it up for everything here. Talking about this new set and everything regarding it so far. So with that being said, guys, that'll pretty much wrap it up for my thoughts here. Once again, huge shout out to Cities on Creation over on Instagram for the information regarding this new Dragons Rising Season 3 set. And also, like I said, feel free to give them a follow. I will link their account here down below in the description. In the meantime, leave all of your thoughts down below as well. What do you think about all of the new information that we talked about in today's video? What do you think about this new set for 2025's January wave? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Why or why not? And again, what do you think about everything that we've discussed? Leave all of your thoughts down below, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed this one, feel free to like and subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I will talk to you guys again very, very soon. Peace.